That's Thursday, the 29th. I'm totally out of money and I owe money to the state via fines. So I thought I'd explain how this all came about. 1972, I started at the university and bumped into an old friend named Eleanor Atkinson, who I knew in high school. Uh, I'd gone up to her place on the moonwalk day and wasn't allowed to stay and watch because her mother's boyfriend, who was much younger, was going to watch it with them. Her father was away somewhere doing research into LSD. Um, he came back a month or something later, and I was told by someone at school that he'd been found dead at the bottom of a cliff somewhere. So Eleanor and her sister Rowena and her mother too moved to the other side of town, Barley, High Street, and I didn't see them again until first year university when I bumped into Eleanor on campus and she recognized me and I sort of said hi. But the Labor Party, I believe it was, didn't like that and had to adjust their policy towards me. And so peculiar things were rumored to have happened, such as a new law professor from Canada was described as having been drowned in the small river behind the university. And then the story was 5 years later, police were charged with killing him. But I didn't see Eleanor again. Now, in first year, because I bumped into Eleanor and I remember the story, I decided to do a research project of 4 pages into 4 different universities. And the subject included a 1 page of questions about lifestyle, including drug usage. I went to 2 universities in Sydney, or 3 in Sydney and 1 in South Australia. I had 450 questionnaires handed out. Took a couple of weeks before they'd all been answered. I looked through the answers and found, for example, that marijuana use was, not very high, but it was not used much in law faculty, and in law faculty, heroin was seemingly the drug of choice, and also cocaine. So I had the questionnaires turned into computer stuff, and then someone stole all the answers, and I had to go to my tutor supervisor, Jack Barbalet, and say what happened. All the stuff was stolen. So he said, okay, well, how about just doing a take on marijuana? Here's some homegrown grass, smoke it, write about it. So I did that. Said, it's an intoxicant. You sort of change perception slightly. And, it lasts an hour or 2 or maybe 3, and blah, 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 and passed the essay up and got a mark. But the people who took the questionnaires, those 400 questionnaires, I think, whereas it turned out, by third year and second year, they started to sort of track me down. Now, they had obviously done that because of the questionnaires. They didn't know my name. All they knew was what I looked like and what university I went to. And so a friend named Randall told me that, there's some people looking for you. They don't know your name. They went to the Flinders Uni bookshop and I asked them who you are, where you are. And he directed them to Adelaide University. And so by third year, and then they had the Chancellor's son was the first one, J.J. Bray's son, who wasn't a student. He was the first member of this sort of heroin ring to come up to me on campus and sort of, not literally, but sort of say, don't look into this any further. It's not your business. Then 6 months later, his associates in that same heroin ring approached me, gave their names as Lynn Kuss and Jeff Wallman. And likewise, they were saying, this is our business. Don't fuck it up, sort of thing. And I said, my answer was, well, I finished that project in first year. It's over. It's done. I'm on to other things. But it may be that they had, different motives from just answering questionnaires. So by 1975, they located me and I was told where they were. And it was West Beach Military Road in a bunch of flats. Went over there and they said, okay, you can come in and have a look at what we're doing. And what they were doing was packaging what would appear to be at least 1 kilo of heroin into bullets that were maybe that big. They would empty the gunpowder out and put the heroin inside the bullets, maybe that big, and then put the bullets into bullet packaging. And I guess how they distributed it was to, give it to someone claiming he's a hunter or he works in the army in the hills or some such nonsense. And in that way, they'd be able to get rid of 1 kilo of heroin, which at that stage would have been worth, I guess, $100,000 or more. And so when I saw that, and they did say, don't tell anyone, when I saw that, I thought, well, this is a real problem. Now, my memory is slightly foggy at that point, but with Eleanor, her mother's boyfriend from the moonwalk day showed up, and there was this girl from interstate named Carol, who Randall had introduced me to, who was sort of like freaking out. Because she didn't know anyone. And the guy who was Mrs. Atkinson, Dr. Atkinson's younger lover, turned up at a house where she had sort of been taken to on Cross Road, where she could stay. And he made sure that I felt very unwelcome, and I recognized him from 4 years earlier. And And I understood that, okay, this is all because you bumped into Eleanor, whose mother had the young lover whose father was found dead. So I just, forgot it. Went and learned to do transcendental meditation, which cost, I think they gave me a discount, $50. And did TM for a while, and then got a job with the government in something called family allowances, where women who had been pregnant, they filled in the form about the outcome of the pregnancy, such as was it a live birth or a stillbirth? Did the child have any, obvious defects, stuff like that? And what happened was that another different heroin gang, who were connected to Scientology, found me, located me, visited me at the 7th floor of the AMP building where I was working, and also found out where I lived at Henley Beach, 10 kilometers away, dropped in, and apparently they had clients that they were delivering heroin to in Henley Beach. So a couple of weeks later, Mr. Taylor, who was the supervisor of the office, told us that you're all going to be redundant because computers are going to take over the whole system, and they'll be much more efficient, won't require many workers at all, and the statistics will work better. And so we were told, okay, next week, that's the end of your employment. I'd saved up some money and got a passport, and quite literally went to an airport in Sydney. And well, I had been seeing Verity, who told me her father was Professor Horn. And when I was sort of seeing her, we'd sort of go out for a walk, or I don't know, something like that, have something to eat maybe. The newspapers appeared to target her as a monster. She lived on Lock Street. And so they created a story saying, oh, the Loch Ness monster has been located. She tried to kill herself, and then went and left town and went interstate and just got lost in a big city. And so when I was on my way to leave, I stopped at her place. She was no longer a target. I could have stayed there just indefinitely, but I wanted to go overseas. I caught a plane to London, got there the next day, went to Europe, visited Holland, where a drug dealer, made the usual thing, your money or your life. I was told by another local character that there'd been a murder, last week in that canal. Somebody had been, I don't know whether to believe it, but he said his guy had his feet put in a bucket of concrete, and then they placed him in the canal and he drowned. And the canal was only, 6 or 8 feet deep. And he was saying, yeah, that sort of stuff happens here. And so I left town and went to Switzerland by train. And in Switzerland, I had this vague idea of visiting a place called Meru, which was where the Maharishi organization, it's called the Maharishi European Research University, situated at a place called Seelersburg. I don't know about 6,000, 4,000, 5,000 feet high. Sort of like it may have been a hotel or a skiing resort in previous eras, but they've been done up and they were repainted and everything. And I showed up there, and it was okay. It was quite relaxing, right? Quite relaxed. No sort of stressful environment, but I didn't have the right clothes. I was just wearing a jumper and jeans or something, whereas Mr. Clements was wearing a suit and tie, and all the ladies were wearing saris. I found my way to a small back office where I was asked, "Who are you? What are you doing here?" I said, "I don't know. I do TM. I come from Australia. I don't know, is there anything I can do?" She said, "Oh, well, all right, fill in a couple of employment forms, but you'll need an address we can contact you at." And so I filled out the employment forms, gave my address back in Australia, and then I left. And when I was in, I think it's Zurich, met some locals, Pete and Rita, who invited me to their home for dinner, which I thought was pretty good because hardly anybody has ever said, "You want to come to our place for dinner?" So I went to Pete and Rita Rickenbacker, which is interesting because there was the guitar manufacturer named Rickenbacker Guitars. I went to Pete and Rita's parents' place, had dinner with them. Pete and Rita went off to her parents' place to spend the night there. And I stayed at Beach's parents' place. Had a good sleep. Woke up early. Beach had come back without Rita. And so what I did basically is say, "Well, I'm leaving." I think I told him about the employment form I'd filled in. Maybe I didn't. I can't quite recall. Caught a bus to Paris. And in Paris, it was funny because, as far as I can remember, there were no tall buildings, no skyscrapers or anything. And they call it the City of Lights, but I didn't see any lights or anything. And found a sort of small, what they call a pension, which was a small hotel. Got a room, a single room at street level, went to bed, had a good night's sleep. The next morning, got up and caught a bus to London. And on the bus, a young girl, woman, maybe, I don't know, 16, 17, 18, saw me and sat down next to me and said, "Hi, my name's Genevieve. Who are you? Where do you come from? What are you doing?" And so I told her the story of, "Oh, well, I'm here after I just finished working in Australia for family allowances, and we have to check all the birth details of thousands and thousands of women." And, she was sort of sitting there saying, "Oh, well," and she spoke English, you see, whereas virtually everybody that I had bumped into didn't speak English. Like at the hotel, they didn't speak English. Beat and Rita spoke English, but most of the people there spoke German. In Holland, most of the people spoke Dutch, I suppose. But the character who told me about the killing of the guy, he spoke English. So anyway, we spent a pleasant afternoon together and got to France, London, sometime later. I don't know, maybe in the afternoon or something, using a cross-channel ferry. She gave me a slip of paper with a phone number on it, but didn't write down her name or anything because it was assumed that I'd be in the Northern Hemisphere and just, use this number and telephone her and say, "Hi, Genevieve, how are you? It's me again." But her parents picked her up at the bus depot, and I then wandered around and caught a few tubes trains. And on one tube train platform, I noticed a poster, a character sitting in a lotus position, advertising, I forget what, something astrology or, prayers for peace. I can't remember what the advertisement said, but the poster was okay. It was pretty big on a wall in the tube station. So I thought, okay, how am I going to find this place? Because I didn't know anything about London. I caught some tube stations and then a surface train. And ended up in a place called Wandsworth, where there was just a totally deserted street and a small office for this Indian sitting in the lotus posture, titled Bhagwan Soham. And I went into the office. There were, 5 or 6 women, older than me, I must say, waiting there as well, I guess, for a consultation, an astrological consultation. And then for some reason, when I was beginning to just get relaxed, someone came out of the office and said, "Okay, you can come in now." Probably because my questions or problems or whatever weren't as serious or intricate or whatever as the local women's questions were. Went in and turned out Bhagwan was a short man, and I can't remember what was he dressed in, but he was wearing clothes. We shook hands. I sat down, gave him my birth date, details, and so on. He wrote down on a piece of paper what Genevieve had said to me. She had said to me, "Well, look, I'm going to be," she sort of said, "I'm going to return to France, Paris, and it'd be good if you were in Paris and we could spend time together." And she gave a specific place, area where I could live when that was taking place. And so Soham wrote down almost verbatim quotes of what she had said to me of where to see her next. And then, of course, we got into the astrological consultation, where it was when were you born, where were you born, what time, did you have any, and I had to say, well, yeah, I was premature by 2 months. And that sort of thing. I think that must have taken 15 minutes. I can't remember if he gave me any advice on that or not. But then I left, and there was a thing where you could make a donation, and I didn't have any coins on me. So I left, went outside, went back to where I had a room. And there was all this crazy stuff going on. Really crazy stuff was going on. And so what I thought I'd do is go back to Australia, get some clothes, some cash money, and return to Paris, to where Genevieve suggested I be. So I got a plane, but the plane was delayed, I think, 12 hours, and didn't take off until the time that I was born, as I told Soham, the astrologer. What time were you born? Oh, 3:30 a.m. Okay, the plane was supposed to leave at 7 p.m. but was delayed until 3:30 a.m. next morning. No explanation. And then, rather than go to Singapore or all those places over there, it became a direct flight from London to Adelaide. And we were told that's the first direct flight from London to Adelaide. And they had a Royal Learjet parked next door where we arrived at about 8 a.m. And then the weed in the jumbo had to fly on further. We weren't allowed to get off and make our way home. We had to then fly to Sydney, which is 1,500 miles away. And then I can't remember whether I flew or caught a train or a bus, but I did arrive back in Adelaide and found that the parents had moved from where the address was I gave in Switzerland, which was Mitchell Street, 13, to where the Unley High School was. And my car was still there and all that stuff was still there. And so when that second lot of heroin dealers showed up, so I went into their church. They said they're members of the Church of Scientology, and said to the Church of Scientology woman, "Oh, look, there are these heroin dealers, and they keep, following me and tracking me down. And they don't say, 'Do you want some heroin?' They just want to sort of go, 'Ha ha ha!' We're heroin dealers. And we get away with it." And so the woman said, "Oh, well, why don't you come back tomorrow?" And I wasn't thinking clearly, and I came back tomorrow, and she was saying, "Well, there's all these books you can buy that'll help you solve the problem." And I sort of said, "Well, that's not going to help solve the problem. Thanks very much. No, I won't buy any books." I drove home, but when I was stationary in the middle of the road doing a right-hand turn, someone doing maybe 60, 70 miles per hour smashed into the rear of me. He had kangaroo bars on the front of his car, smashed into the rear of me, pushed me, I guess, 200, 300 feet up the road into a cherry tree. And boy, that was quite a shake-up experience. I was sort of able to walk afterwards, but a local friend of my father happened to be driving in the area, saw the complete write-off car, placed me in his VW car, took me to the local doctor. He knew the local doctor. His name was Dickinson, I think. And she was on Birdwood Avenue or something, and I was not feeling too good by then. Ian McMillan showed up. I don't know how maybe he was part of it, showed up, poked his head in the door to see who was there, to see if I was still alive, maybe. I don't know if I ever had any conflict with him, but he did show up. And Jill Dickinson, I think, maybe gave me a tablet or something, or said go to the hospital or something. I can't remember. I was almost unconscious by then. So I was then driven back to my parents' place. My car had been picked up and taken to Mubarak crash repairs. I went to bed and then just slept for, I think, 25 hours straight. And it wasn't really sleep. And oh boy, it wasn't really sleep. So I figured out that it's the heroin dealers arranged a car accident. Now, were they Lynn? Oh, I had noticed, you see, that the female member of the university heroin ring with the bullets, she'd moved into the same area. There, you see, and so I had to figure out: is this Lynn Kuss people who just gave me a car crash, or is this Martin Henley people who just gave me a car crash? I didn't care. The other driver didn't give his name or address or anything. I then went to the other side of town, 7th Avenue, St. Peter's, and just sort of tried to, stop feeling as if I'd just been in a car crash. As if I'd just been in a car crash. But to cut a long story short, I don't know how she knew, but that Lynn Kuss somehow located where I was living. I don't know what I should have done after a car crash, because it just really sort of affects the way you feel. Like, do you need drugs to get over it? Do you need lots of rest, or what? How do you get over a car accident? Do you go to hospital and say, I was just in this car accident? I wasn't walking very well, but somehow or other she located me and started sort of hassling me. So, I had no idea what was going on. And eventually she was able to leave me alone. I still hadn't recovered from the car accident, but I applied for a job as a school teacher. And was assigned to a place called Blackfriars Boys School on, I think, Prospect Road. And when I went there, I felt terrible. God, I mean, I had to walk, you see, and when I went there, I just felt terrible, like I could barely walk. And so I think I told the school, I can't do this. I had a car accident and I just don't feel right. And then I don't know how long later they had that the Vatican banker was murdered in London and hung from the Blackfriars Bridge. And so, I didn't put one and one together, but they did want to make a story, and they did want you or me to buy a newspaper or watch TV. But I still hadn't sort of recovered. And, And so that went on for, I don't know, a couple of years. Various bad things happened. But it didn't occur to me that this heroin ring, that Lynn Kuss and Jeff Waldman were sort of the major players. It didn't occur to me that they had overseas contacts. Didn't really occur to me that the guns they had in another room were being shipped overseas and used by terrorists, such as the people who killed the Prime Minister of Italy, the Red Brigade, or to other places that were as well. And I'm not going to speculate on that at all, because, as I said, that car accident really took it out of me. I didn't, of course, get any compensation for the car accident. The other driver didn't give his name or address. But when I was here, 40 years later, he parked outside 2 times his red SUV. He was soon after followed by Lynn Kuss, who showed up when I suppose she's a nun from Self-Realization Fellowship, sort of drove down Kensington Road And then next day, Lynn Kuss showed up driving down Kensington Road in a blue SUV. And then that same blue SUV was placed where in high school Garth Bowen lived, who was my tutor in chemistry and helped me get third highest in the state. And then that car from where he lived showed up next door. And Anthony, and I asked him, where'd you get the car from? And he said, someone gave it to me, arranged to give it to me. I said, well, gee, that's pretty generous of them. But internally, I was thinking, they're really moving in on me again. Because the first week I was here, second week, Channel 7 had shown up outside with a whole big movie camera, TV cameras, and half a dozen police cars. And then when I went shopping at Walkerville, they showed up there as well. Nothing was going on. So as it turns out, they were involved in a plot. And you've got to ask yourself, for example, who would the cocaine users be from 72? Because it was law faculty, heroin, big deals of heroin, and cocaine. And so who uses cocaine? Who used cocaine? It's sort of a party drug, but who uses it? People on TV? Music executives, producers of music, that sort of thing. Had no idea, but they did stalk me there. And then, as I said, the nun showed up, and then the Lynn Kuss in her blue SUV. And next thing you know, the neighbour takes possession of it. And all he can say is, I don't know, somebody gave it to me for free. But the thing had started because I remember when, let's say, for example, John Lennon murdered in 1980. John Lennon, 1980. A state policeman had come up to me at about 11 o'clock the night after saying, we arranged to kill John Lennon. And I thought, okay, well, good luck to you. It was a good job. I'm glad you did it. And then the details came out. A guy named Chapman was the gunman, the triggerman. And so, I had to think back to Mubarak crash repairs, because next door was some small shop named Chapman. I'd later on realised that this was all connected to State Education Minister Hugh Hudson's niece, who in 72 knew some dope dealers, but not heroin dealers, not cocaine dealers. Psychedelic type dope dealers, and and that's just that. But what the government then would do is arrange, sort of after that. Her father's name was Angus, and he was involved in airlines, so it might have been buddies of his who did that first non-stop flight from London to Adelaide. But what the government Labor Party then did is place their police headquarters on Angus Street, number 1, and arranged some things to happen after Mr. Policeman said, we arranged to kill John Lennon. Oh, right, well, that's good. I still had not 100% recovered from my car accident, you see. So anyway, when I was here, the car, the SUV, Lynn Kuss, The woman who went, she claimed, told me, went to Los Angeles to pick up a kilo of heroin. Stayed there 5-6 days, all prearranged. You don't just go to a place like Los Angeles and pick up a kilo of heroin on the street. You've got to know people in the business who trust you. Picked it up, blah, blah, blah. They got rid of it, and a law firm with the name of the guy who was doing the cutting and the packaging, Walden, I noticed when I moved here, had opened up a law office called Law Walman's. And so it's interesting, in the last couple of months, when I had a legal problem, there were 2-3 law offices in the area. One was on Trinity Street, a woman, and I think she dealt with divorces or something. And so after I told her what the problem was, she just sort of replied, well, that's outside of my field, and, you might have a bit of a problem finding someone who can, deal with it. And then they reported that, I don't know, 3 days later, she was found dead in her bath when her husband was out. And so the cops charged the husband, and he was placed in jail for, I don't know, 10 years. And the law office closed. And then the next lawyer I went to was on Kensington Road. And then the next day, someone had smashed down his awning. So he closed down. And then there was another lawyer on Kensington Road I spoke to. And the same thing happened to his awning. Someone smashed it down and he closed his office because, you understand the way these people communicate. They give you a message, you're moving out of town. So I wasn't able to see a lawyer, but that's the story that's taken place. But one other thing. 1984, I did have a short legal paper. You can go to the court, the local. You got to pardon me because it feels like I got a cracked rib or a broken rib or something, and it's very difficult to breathe. Let's see. You can go to the local court and they have a lot of forms, and I picked out a form saying cease and desist stalking me, sort of thing. Paid them $30, and it was against the advertiser Rupert Murdoch. And you had to give your address. And so a couple of days later, came home. After being out for, 4 hours, my place had been ransacked and, just anything of importance had been taken, including, I won't say, but copyright certificates from U.S. Library of Congress, as well as manuscripts. The copyright was for an unpublished manuscript. And there were other manuscripts taken, all sorts of things went missing. And, they did, that was their reply, as was their reply with the 2 solicitors. The 2 solicitors I went to visit years later, Kensington Road. Whoever was, acting against me, their reply was to tell those lawyers to piss off, don't help this guy. He's our mark. He's our fall guy. Okay, so I won't go into the details further than that, but the fall guy did take place. A character who was associated with Lynn, of course, I don't know, 40 years earlier, showed up dressed as a policeman. And then he did all these scams and deals and prevented me. Anytime I contacted anyone, they'd do something to where I contacted. Such as a physiotherapist. I thought, well, maybe a physiotherapist could sort of help me overcome this car crash. He was named Active Edge, and that's a book title by someone named Carlos Castaneda, The Active Edge. I've read that book, it's interesting. It describes in detail, well, in a type of detail, what happened to Eleanor's father, jumping off a cliff to your death, or what that girl who was taken to the house where Eleanor's mother's lover was, 8 years later, what she was wearing before they got hold of her. And so that was very interesting. I don't know how they know this, but, they got eyes everywhere. But then some Japanese showed up, and these were connected to the Brewsters, apparently. The Brewsters, apparently, and Sony Music. And by that time, John Brewster had been paid off handsomely, I believe, in a couple of ways. Sony Music had opened an office on Prospect Road. And, from what I was reading, many bands, including Bob Dylan, switched to Sony Music, and film stars and movies were then made by Sony Music. And so one day, Japanese woman showed up in the car park, and I just happened to be standing around in the car park, and she hadn't noticed. She was coming to see someone, but she hadn't noticed that I was there. Saw me and sort of freaked out and quickly left. I don't know, then next week, the Prime Minister of Japan was killed by a Christian sect. A Christian sect murdered the Prime Minister of Japan, who was in office at the time. And, and then the Japanese woman who had sort of freaked out then tracked me to Audi store a couple of weeks, a month later, wearing the same clothes and, looking very gung-ho and stuff like that. Didn't buy anything, of course, in Audi or anything like that. And I guess she wanted me to figure out that her Christianity involved them killing their prime minister. That sort of thing. That was a change of tactic. It had, as far as I know, nothing to do with the Lynn Kuss heroin ring, because that was a totally different thing. To put it simply, John Brewster, I think in 75 or something, went to Japan, stayed there for a while, and came back to Adelaide with a Sony hi-fi system. And before he came back, one of his friends, one of John's friends, had sort of taken me aside and said, Anne, she's a member of the mafia. I'd stay away from her if I was you. And I sort of scratched my head and thought, well, what do you mean by the mafia? And I won't say what, but she was working with Lynn Kuss at the time of the kilo heroin import. But John Brewster brought back a Sony hi-fi, and it seems there was some arrangement that was going on involving the company, Sony, who moved into Adelaide on Prospect Road. And that's the end of the story. But I did keep that in mind about, she's a member of the mafia. And within a week, I'd found out that she was working with Lynn Kuss, Jeff Wallman, when they were doing their heroin. So there's a place I want to avoid having anything to do with. But again, these people like to find out where you live and ingratiate themselves onto you. And so that's the end of the story, basically, for me now. Okay, God bless you, and tra-la-la. I've not been able to do transcendental meditation since that car accident, incidentally. I don't know why. I just can't sit comfortably for 20 minutes anymore. Because the car accident was like a funny thing. And then, of course, the other driver, 40 years later, did show up here, parked outside, or parked his car outside. And then, of course, Lynn Kuss showed up and arranged to give the blue SUV to the neighbor, Anthony, and blah, blah, blah. And they just kept on moving in on me. And so I'm now stuck in a mess that I can't repair or fix. So I'm making this recording, not because they're going to kill me, but if I go someplace or disappear somewhere, this will be the last will and testament of Lubo Eric, number 1, 36 Rundle Street, Kent Town, 5067. The details involving the guy who was at Atkinson's house moon landing, the lover. Oh, I feel as if I've got a broken rib. Involve a new real estate development, interstate in Victoria, using the name of Ridge Road off Ferguson Avenue. That I had some friends at, Mr. and Mrs. Colmer, and then their kids lived up past Ridge Road. So the real estate development is called, I don't know, Botanic Ridge or something. And the guys who are there, playing the same games. So anyway, bye-bye. It's not a question of winning or losing. It's just a question of erasing my experiences, my achievements, my experiences, my realizations, my profound understandings, and replacing it with a local rock and roll promoter. There was and I've found other people get involved with rock and roll promoters. And again, you don't want to go into the details of that, because there was a suggestion that Eleanor's father was murdered. All anyone knew was he was found at the bottom of a cliff. The rock show promoter, for example, used one of her friend's street addresses as the place down south for his first rock festival. The other rock promoter, the same thing. They're into just bullshit. Bullshit. They make money off it, big time money, but there are no mountains here. There are no lakes here. There's, no crystal waters. There's nothing. And they know that. And so they, brainwash those kids into accepting this as reality. And the other thing is, I'll guarantee no Catholics go to any of those rock shows. Okay. Jai Gurudev. Bye.